Okay, welcome back to Leffafriikki Cinema channel, and right here is very special episode. I'm still in Finland, but I have some really international guests here with me today. Can you quickly introduce who we're talking to today in my episode?
Okay, so I'm Geoffrey Heinzel. I'm one of the co-owners of Ascendo Immersive Audio, and our brand is set out to design and manufacture very high quality speakers and systems. Not only speakers, by systems I mean like amplifiers, DSPs and whatnot, for high-end and high-performance home theater systems. So we do, of course, we're very well known for subwoofers, I guess, but we're also, doing a lot of very high-end loudspeakers, high-performance loudspeakers. So many of our loudspeakers do well above 130 dB, and all of our speakers use the point source coaxial loudspeaker technology, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about that later.
Yep.
I'm the designer of these loudspeakers and of many of the electronics, and I'm also responsible for marketing and sales, and of course the product training and travel the world. I just came back from China a few days ago. Go to Germany now, and then start traveling again to overseas. So I'm very happy to be here in Finland. It's the first time for me to be here with Marek Sound, and our distributor here in Finland, who does, by the way, an exceptional job, in helping us to promote the brand. But also he has a really good team, a very technical team, a team of specialists. They really understand very deeply sound, right? Because some of the people here are trained musicians, studio engineers, and so we have very highly trained and capable people that are able to understand the rather technical products we're selling, right? Because to make a good calibration takes quite something, to perfect it. I mean, because you're, as you just told me, on the beta team for Trinnov yourself. So you must be then in that respect also quite technical, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so this is who I am, and well, thank you for having me on your channel.
Yeah, really great to have you here. Well, you said you travel a lot around the world, yes. I think the most interesting question, why you're here? What brings you to Finland this time?
Right. Well, it's a number of things, of course. To do a proper product training of my products, but also in the last 2 days, we did a couple of calibrations together with the team. So I've been bringing the team up to speed on some calibration techniques, right? We just fine-tuned this system here, the big system, where there is the main speakers, I think, is Wisdom Audio. And we just added the Ascendo subwoofers. So we use here the 28-inch squared 2 times, one left and one on the right side, and 2 double 18-inch subwoofers, the Pro Shallow from the Ascendo lineup, together with our amplification. So each of the 28s is driven by 10 kilowatts of our infrasonic amplifier. And the double 18s is driven by the DSP4 10K, so it's also a 10 kilowatt amplifier, so 5 kilowatt for a double 18. And we did the calibration on the Trinnov. I'm not sure, I think it's a 32 channel Trinnov here. So we have, what else do we have? We have 4 ceiling speakers, we have 2 side surrounds, 2 rear surrounds, and of course then the 3 front speakers which I'm not sure which Wisdom it is. I think it's an LS3, I believe. I'm not sure. So that is what we have been working on. Also yesterday we have been working in this room on a less expensive system with a Denon receiver.
Yeah.
And we use Dirac, the normal Dirac Live, I think, for calibration. We use two 18-inch subwoofers here in the front. They're above the 28-inch here on the left and right side. We use, I think, 3 of our 10-inch, and they're driven by the Denon. And then we have, you can probably not see it, but here in the corner, 6-inch wedge for side surrounds, and 2 of our 6-inch in-ceilings as tops. So it's a rather small but quite nice system, and quite I would say for the price punching way above his weight line, you know. But you know, you can tell your audience, of course, more after you hear it, you know, you experience it. So this is what we've been doing here, or what I've been doing here, and of course it will not be the last time coming here. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, well, obviously those new speakers are extremely interesting. 28-inch square subwoofers. Why they are squared? What's the difference between the square ones and the, you know, something traditional we've been used to? Yeah. What's the difference?
Okay, so the idea behind this woofer was, you know, coming up in a discussion with Arno Laborie, the CEO of Trinnov, because way before everybody knew that there was, you know, something coming with waveforming. Yeah. Of course, we discussed and tossed around the idea of a double base array, you know, because I mean, there's nothing new. It has been developed by a German engineer, Anselm Gertz, maybe 20 or 25 years ago. And so we have been playing around with this idea also already like 15 years ago. And so now, of course, Trinnov has been optimizing this technology through certain algorithms and to automate it, because it's not easy to calibrate manually, right? So Trinnov came up with ways how to make it easier and more user-friendly, right? And of course also perform a little bit better than a normal double base array, right? And so going back to that discussion with Arno Laborie, we said, because a double base array lives off of certain parameters as well, you know. So when you space subwoofers on the front and when you space subwoofers in the rear wall to absorb the bass, right? That spacing determines the high cutoff frequency of the bass array, right? So when you look at home theater, the output is defined as LFE, low frequency effect channel, right? Which is a discrete channel on a Blu-ray or on a stream, and it goes by definition of Dolby up to 120 hertz or higher, right? But at least 120 hertz. So now, when you look at these 120 hertz, and when you create what we call a planar wave front traveling through the room, right? The spacing between the woofers must be dense enough that the woofer spacing should be ideally lambda forth. So when you look at the wavefront of the 120 hertz wave, right? I'm not good at math, so let's take 100 hertz as a reference. But 100 hertz is, of course, 3.4 meters long, right? Because 344 meters per second divided by 100 is 3.4 meters, right? So 3.4 divided by 4 is maybe 80 centimeters, 85, whatever. So in order to have a perfect planar wavefront, you would need a spacing from woofer to woofer horizontally and vertically of 85 centimeters. So But that creates a problem, of course, because I mean that means for a room like that you would need probably like at least 16 woofers in the front and 16 woofers in the back, which is not practical, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to have a perfect wavefront up to these high frequency, that's what you need, because you cannot overcome physics.
Yeah.
So Trinnov came up with the idea to say, okay, because we have a small room and we have side walls, and of course also ceiling and floor, that the side walls and the ceiling and floor are kind of mirroring the original woofers, right? So kind of doubling, right, so to speak. I didn't make the research, so I only repeat what Trinnov is saying here. But in the end of the day, if it works, it's fine, and that's more up to you to answer, right? And more up to Trinnov to answer, because I'm not getting involved into this discussion. However, it's still fairly dense, so even with let's say 1.6 meter or 1.7 meter in each direction, you still need a lot of subwoofers, right?
Yeah.
Because when you space them further apart, which you can do, what you do is basically you loosen the density of your grid, and so the planar wavefront is not a planar wavefront anymore at higher frequencies of the bass, only at lower frequencies of the bass. So you still may get all the optimization waveforming can offer at the lower frequencies, but at the higher frequency it kind of deviates, more again, So I think this is what we're talking about here. And so coming back to that discussion, now the idea was the 28-inch squared subwoofer is interesting, because when you look at a round woofer, when you look at the cone area needs to be, or the woofer needs to be bigger on a round woofer than on a squared woofer, because you have that extra cone area basically in a square, right? So you fit more area in a square than in a round circle, right? So to speak, in the same dimensions.
We talk about, when we talk about waveforming, steering the bass, does it matter if it's square or circle? Does it change the waveform, how the sound forms from the speaker? Does it change the we talk about, if we talk about higher frequencies, we can steer them wider or whatever. Does it matter? Does it change in the bass? What's the form of the
no, because when you look at bass at these frequencies we're talking about, bass is almost omnidirectional. So even at 120 hertz, it's still pretty much omnidirectional. So no, it does not matter, right? If we talk about higher frequencies, then let's say 250, 300 hertz, then it starts becoming a more beamy subject, and especially when we talk about big cones like that. But at lower frequencies, that's not a big issue. I mean, it has certain benefits because it's a planar cone. So to create a planar wavefront is easier from a planar cone than from, of course, a cone, right? So now, when we come back to the discussion I had, of course, with Arno Leffafriikki, then I basically presented him my idea from what I know about double bass arrays, and of course he agreed, because you cannot disagree with physics, right? And so I said, so what if I come up with a woofer that could be spaced literally, if somebody would want it, one next to the other, giving you the perfect lambda fourth spacing, woofer to woofer, and that's how this shape came about. So the woofer is 80 centimeters wide and 1 meter tall only, right? And that allows literally an 80 centimeter spacing for each woofer next to each other.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, you can also flip it around and then basically have the 1 meter spacing. Because somewhere, of course, you need also to fit your left and center and right speaker.
Yeah.
In between the woofers, right?
Yeah. Especially in the smaller rooms,
Yes,
those take space
yes,
too. So,
yes,
for
yes.
example, I have 3 18-inch
Yeah.
full Martys in the
Yeah,
front
yeah,
wall, and that's full.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
there's
yeah.
no more room for subwoofers.
Exactly,
I don't need more, but there's no
yeah.
more room in the front.
Correct,
So.
yeah. So this is why, I mean, we do what we do. The 28-inch for its output capabilities, and of course we publish all the data on our website. You will see that this woofer is capable with the proper amplification of well over 140 dB. Yeah. And that is quite amazing for the space occupied by that woofer. Because the space occupied is, like I said, 80 by 1 meter, but only 30 centimeter deep. So you don't really give up a lot of space in the room. And that is for a lot of the rooms when you don't have big rooms, right? A big thing, you know, when you have big woofers, big speakers, you know, you're not able to give up, let's say, 50 or 60 centimeter in the room just for that, right? So that's how we came up with the design of that woofer. But now to make it work physically, it's quite a big challenge, because to drive a big cone like that in a very shallow enclosure, so you need a very, very shallow motor design of the woofer. And so I literally played around with the concept for 2.5 years until we finally came up with a design that worked. And we were really surprised to get this performance out of it, because it's quite dramatic, you know.
It really sounds good, you know. I've been here before, and now this is second or third time I'm hearing them, and they really start to, you know, flourish. They're really big time speakers. Talking about the calibration a little bit, we talk about waveforming, we talk about direct live. I saw you a little bit doing work here with the staff, and that. How much you think you can and you should do just by ear, or how much you need technologic to calibrate great system?
Look, I think at a certain level we all agree, and you know, I mean, I'm working with, you know, the most talented people on this planet in this field. You know, I mean, with Adam Pels, with Ben Goff, with Peter Aylett, with Christian Butkickers, and all these people basically, with Arled in you know, in Germany and so on. So we all agree that when you calibrate a system, we're very, very thankful for what Trinnov is doing here, because I mean that calibration, this auto calibration system is already quite good. But they enable us also with certain tools that are built into the system to further optimize it, right? So that's why Trinnov calls it the optimizer. And we can play around with different tools inside the Trinnov, not only the optimizer and the target curve, but there is also one tool I really like a lot, the pulse, you know, doing basically the timing by ear, which further, you know, I mean, maybe change the timing only 0.1 of a millisecond. Sometimes maybe it's 3, maybe it's even 1 millisecond. But anyway, since we have these tools and we know how to use them, we use them, and it certainly helps to increase the dynamics of the system and of course the spatial rendering, because the better the timing is of the system, the better the spatial rendering will become, right? But that, you know, every system, you mentioned also Dirac, of course, which in certain processors has a lot of capabilities, you know. So I think I like to work with both systems equally, because they both have maybe a little bit of a different character, but in the end, when the calibration is done right and well by people that really know what they're doing, they sound pretty similar, you know.
Yeah.
So at a almost even, you know, level.
Yeah. What I really like Trinnov, everybody thinks it's really, you know, complicated and hard to calibrate. The bass is really easy. Anybody pretty much can, you know, use the auto calibration and get going, but then you have unlimited opportunities to do whatever you want, whatever you know want to fix, you can do it. So that's something I really like. Like, for example, I got my Trinnov from Marantz, and they never calibrated. I have just studied myself and tried to get better and better and better, and now obviously with the waveforming, it's again another level, and it's really interesting to learn by doing. That's what I really love in this business.
Yeah, exactly. And the best people in this business actually learn by doing, you know, not by trade. Most of the people in our industry, they just love what they do, and they kneel in and learn, because all the resources you need are online. So you just need time and study and repeat and do and try, you know. And today we live in a time where almost all tools are either very low cost or even for free, right? So you spend a few €100 and you get all the measurement gear you need to do all the, you know, measurements and calibrations yourself. Of course, if you have then the tools like a Trinnov or like a DSP or whatever, that definitely unique, yes.
Yeah. Well, talking about Trinnov and stuff, we talk about a lot end of game stuff, and you know, I think I have everything I need. Next day I don't have anything. What's the future? What do you see? What's coming in the business?
Oh gosh,
where are we heading to?
Well, I mean, if you look a little bit at what different technology companies are trying to do. If you look at Dolby, for example, I mean, I'm not a picture guy, so don't ask me much about.
I'm the same way. I like the good picture, but that's not my thing. I like the sound.
But still, if you look at Dolby Vision, it's all about dynamic range, right? It's what we know as audio guys. We like dynamic, right? You know, and the same thing is coming for the picture. So the more dynamic, but dynamic means also you need a lot of light output. Same like with a speaker, you need a lot of SPL to get the dynamic. Because in a home theater, a movie easily can surpass 70 decibels between the soft and the very loud passage, you know. If you look at movies like, I don't know, Quiet Place or whatever, you know, I mean, there is a lot of movies like that, right? And so without having a speaker that is able to reproduce that dynamic range, and there I have to say, you know, most speakers are not. Because, for example, when you take a simple speaker, you know, like I call them cones and domes, right? Like you have a two-way speaker, 6.5-inch woofer, and the dome tweeter, right? That dome tweeter never ever can reach more than 105, maybe if you're lucky 177 dB, right? So when you're sitting 4 meters away from that speaker, which is quite common, right? So how much do you lose? You lose 12 dB, because every time you double the distance from 1 meter to 2 meter, 2 meter to 4 meter, you lose 12 dB. So 12 dB, basically deduct that from 107, you know, you're left basically, even at maximum SPL of that speaker, with maximum power, with 95 dB. So we're not even capable of reproducing, if you want to listen full dynamics of your movie, you cannot, right? Because then 95 minus 70 is 25. So most of the noise floor in the room is more than 25 dB. So you understand where I'm coming from. So this is why even the smallest speaker we have has a maximum SPL of 121 dB. And this is really, really important to understand. You know, not that we listen at 120 dB, no, but we want to listen to this speaker at maybe minus 10 dB of the maximum capability, because every speaker on this planet at maximum SPL distorts like crazy.
Yeah.
You don't want to listen to
Yeah.
this distortion. So you want to reduce the maximum SPL of that speaker at least by 5, 6, or maybe better,
Yeah.
even 10 dB, to get into a very low distortion range of that loudspeaker to make it really sound sweet,
Yeah.
right? Sound good, yeah. And so you always need to build into your speaker system more dynamic. And now coming back to the video, it's the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, when you have a high dynamic range, HDR10, yeah, or Dolby Vision, yeah. So then you need, of course, let's say a light output at your screen of maybe 300 nits, right?
Yeah.
And to be able to do that, you need a projector, even in a small room, you know, not with a big screen. You know, you need a projector that has 10
Yeah.
or 15,000
Yeah.
lumen output, right?
Yeah.
And this is what we're talking when we talk about dynamic range,
Yeah.
right? And yes, of course, you get a picture, and the picture may be really beautiful, but it may be too dark. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't offer you that dynamic range
Yeah.
that you really need, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we work today a lot with also LED screens. You know, in some major markets, we do a lot of LED screens nowadays, because these LED screens sometimes they do more than 1,000 nits. You know.
Yeah.
Some of them do 2,000 nits. You know, of course, you don't look at 1,000 or 2,000 nits because it would be so
Yeah.
bright, it would be blinding you. You know, but it's the dynamic capability again we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Dolby Atmos really changes the business 10 years. It's more already.
Yeah,
it
a
was
little bit more,
2005,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
No,
yeah.
15?
No, it was
around
oh,
there.
Gosh,
Yeah.
I think it was what?
Yeah.
No,
over
10,
10.
12,
Yeah.
2010, 12, something like
Yeah,
that.
something
yes.
like that.
Anyway,
Do you see anything like that coming up in the future? Is it something
revolutionary.
Probably, yeah.
I think Ambisonics being a little bit pushed now in the pro audio market. Higher Ambisonics also, you know, I mean, because there is different levels of Ambisonics, of course. But you can derive from Ambisonics also. You can go back to Dolby Atmos. It's just how the audio is being rendered again,
Yeah.
you know, and so it's more about the rendering capability. And today, I think everybody agrees that the object-based system, you know, which is used by Dolby Atmos and DTSX, is quite good. And there were other technologies, you know, like NHK from Japan, 22.2 system, or Oro 3D system, you know, which are all great systems, but there were discrete systems, you know, and so I think the object, because of the data transmission, because everything becomes more stream, right? So when you talk about stream, you talk about data.
Yeah.
So you need to reduce the data, and so when you talk about object, for example, there is a lot less objects on, let's say, on an Apple TV or on a Netflix than on a Blu-ray.
And feels like those companies doesn't really take everything what you can get out of the Atmos.
No, of course, yes.
They're not utilizing it how it should be.
Right.
Because when I watch a lot of movies, there's a lot of movies where I'm just, where is it?
Right.
You're saying you have an Atmos, but you're using two hype speakers.
Yeah.
Why is that? You know, why company? Maybe it's the time, it's the money, it's all that. But you know, that's interesting too.
Yeah.
Okay. If we talk about, you know, DIY guys like I am, and just the normal guys on the business and normal, you know, customers in the business, what would you do to improve their system the most with the limited budget and limited spaces and stuff? What do you think? What are those steps? How you can improve your systems easiest and most inexpensive way if you want to do something that you can really recognize in the
For me, the biggest mistake being made in home theater is that the rooms are overdamped or not acoustically treated. So I think these two factors are very, very important to understand. So do never overdamp, or actually, I would even go more extreme. I would say never put any damping material into your room, period.
That's interesting.
Only use high quality diffusers.
Yeah.
Yeah, diffusion, like
Yeah,
what we're talking about
here, yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Use that only. Because all you want to keep all the energy you can get for mid and high frequencies in the room.
Okay.
But you don't want a hard reflection. That's all you want to get rid of, a hard reflection.
Yeah.
But you want scattering. You
Yeah.
want diffusion, right? And so the more diffusion, the better.
And I think that's even more important in the small rooms, right?
Of course.
To make it
sound
bigger.
bigger.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Because you want to keep that energy and you want to make the sound bigger in the room, right? And of course, getting rid of room modes is a big issue, right? That's why I think every company, it doesn't matter if it's Trinnov or Dirac or whoever, is trying to come up with their own technology, right? And it is the biggest challenge to get rid of bass resonances in a room.
And again, we talk about smaller rooms, even bigger problem.
It's a bigger problem because taking care of bass takes space.
Yeah.
Right? So to build passive bass traps that really work, some of them for low frequency, like 30 hertz or 40 hertz or whatever. I mean, they need to be literally like 1 or 2 meters deep, to absorb all that bass, right? But again, when you do that, you make the room really dead.
Yeah.
It's good for the bass, but not for the mid and high frequencies. So that's really the tricky part in small rooms, that you want two things which are kind of opposites, right? And a lot of people use, damping material. Why? Because it's easy. They think it's easy,
Or because that's probably what everybody did before,
right?
Like
Correct.
10, 15 years ago.
Yes.
If you watch YouTube videos, everybody's saying, put it here, put it here. And
But now when you look at this material, that's maybe 5, 6, maybe 10, if you're lucky, 10 centimeter deep, So what are the frequencies this material can absorb? If you look at it, if you look at the data sheets, if the company even have data sheets, or if you are a DIY guy, you may be buying Basotec or whatever kind, or glass fiber or mineral wool or whatever. If you look at all these data sheets from these companies, and they do exist, from rock wool or whatever, they show you they absorb with a factor of 1 or a little bit more, maybe down to, 500 hertz. Maybe 600, maybe 400. But then they start rolling off in the efficiency. But that's exactly the opposite what you want. You want basically down to 400 or 500 hertz, no absorption. You want to keep the energy, and below you want the absorption. So to build an effective bass trap, I mean, there is different ways. Of course, there's Helmholtz resonators, there is membrane slot absorbers, whatever. It's very difficult to do that. To really hit the frequency, because what happens also with the room mode, let's say when you tune it to the frequency you measured, the room mode shifts away from the bass trap. So you need to build a second bass trap with a shifted frequency. So it's a shifting problem. And that's why companies like Dirac and Trinnov try to approach it from a completely different angle. Dirac Art is trying to absorb it through all the speakers throughout the room, right? And Trinnov is trying to, with waveforming, use basically a technology that the room mode doesn't even build, right? But it has another challenge, when you push basically and absorb in the back. What happens? You also do not allow very low frequencies to build up in the room, like infrasonic. Because your infrasonic is basically the frequency that builds up through pressure in the room. So basically, like your tire, literally, you pressurize the room, right? You increase and decrease the pressure inside the room through the woofers, right? And that pressure change, same like you're, for example, having an in-ear smartphone, headphone, right? Or like in a car, you can reproduce 10 and 5 hertz in a car or in an in-ear phone. How? Because the wave doesn't fit there, right? Because the wave is like 30 meters long, right? So how do they do that? Through pressure change, right? And this is exactly what we do in a home theater when we do basically infrasonic bass. When we talk about infrasonic bass, we change the pressure in the room. But now, when you basically have a technology that sends just a shock wave through the room, basically a planar wave, and absorbs then in the back of the room that planar wave. So all you have is basically the planar wave, but you cannot pressurize the room because it's actually the opposite what you do back there. You depressurize the room, kind of. You understand? So below the lowest room mode, you are not really doing much with this technology, right? And so there is now studies, as you know, as a beta tester, to try to bring it back in, right? Which is not easy, because in the end of the day, even Trinnov realized, oh, crap, we need to pressurize the room. You know, and how do we do that? How do we now integrate, let's say, a pressurization sub back into the waveforming system? And that's not trivial. I mean, we have been doing it for the last 2-3 years, you know, the well-experienced calibrators, just manually, right? But of course, Trinnov is trying to do that now with an automatism, so to speak. So anyway, I mean, these are the kind of things, you know, I could you know, give as a recommendation to your followers, you know. I don't know what else.
Well, it's been really interesting conversation. Anything else you would like to tell my local listeners, and also I have a lot of international listeners. Any last things you would like to tell them, or?
What would I tell you? The industry goes in one direction also, which is all audio over IP. So because from Trinnov there will be no longer an analog processor available. So it's
CI is coming.
or I mean, they will have some analog outputs, but those analog outputs normally are for the bass. And so for all mid and high frequencies, there will be what we call audio over IP, AES67 or Dante AES67. And so for hobbyists, that may be a challenge, because they don't really know how to set up maybe a Dante network or an audio over IP network, which is can be even for the specialist quite challenging, you know, because you need to set some settings in, and you need a managed switch, by the way, to be able to control the traffic on the network. So you need, of course, amplifiers or what we call bridges. So basically AES67 to analog bridge, if you don't want to change your amplifiers, right? So it's definitely coming, and it's coming quick, because I mean Storm Audio does that audio over IP thing already for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years by now, right? And there is some other companies, I think one of which is Lingdorf. You know, they also have a commercial processor that has audio over IP outputs, and there will be more and more and more. I think eventually in the future the whole house will be audio over IP. There is audio over IP amplifiers today that are PoE powered even, so you can power your ceiling speakers with a little box which is PoE powered. Maybe not necessarily for a home theater today that is very powerful, but for a small, background music system or for a small home theater, definitely. Like your ceiling speaker, you put a black box next to the ceiling speaker in your ceiling, and you're done. So it's quite interesting the time we're living in, and of course when I then go further into the future, even probably the video part will be streaming. The processor will receive all. I mean, right now we still have that roadblock, the HDMI cable, right? Which is a big headache for all of us. But eventually, what I can also foresee is that, let's say, we have that technology already today. It's just because of the studios, they don't allow that. We cannot speak directly to, let's say, an Apple TV. But in theory, it would be possible to have an Apple TV speaking directly to your amplifier, to your, let's say, PoE-powered amplifier, without any decoder anymore in the future. So right now it's because of licensing and all that kind of stuff. We use this expensive device in between, but I definitely can see that this eventually, maybe, I don't know, 5 or 10 years from now, it will never go away. We will, because I made that prediction already like 15 years ago, because it was already back then capable of doing that. But anyway, so it's these kind of things, that could be quite challenging and interesting in the future.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure to have you here, and it's obviously nice to get you here in Finland while it's finally getting a little warmer. Showing how this country looks like. Our audio is here, big thing as well. And
it's been beautiful outside. Sunshine and 10, 11 degrees in April. It's quite nice.
Thank you so much for visiting.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.